I just discovered that one of my snakes laid a clutch of eggs.
The first thing I did was remove the mother from the egg so I could get them ready for incubation.
I then marked the tops of all of the eggs with a piece of charcoal. I marked the tops of the eggs so I know which way is up in case the eggs roll during incubation. However, these eggs didn't stick together, so they may have rolled already. So I'm going to need to candle them, but before I do that, I'm going to put them inside of the egg box. Once inside of the egg box, I'll candle them and then rotate the egg to ensure that the embryo is face up, and then I'll remark the eggs. When I candle the eggs, I'm looking for a strong network of veins, and usually in the center of that network is the embryo. And I want that embryo facing up.
I have seen some eggs hatch successfully when the embryo wasn't facing up, but I want to give these eggs the best chance possible, so I'm going to rotate them so they're facing up.
I did have to rotate the majority of these eggs and then remark, but all of these eggs look healthy and fertile. So now I have to get them into the incubator to keep them warm. I'll also cover the egg box with some plastic wrap to keep the humidity levels nice and high.
I'll get these eggs into the incubator and we'll check up on them again soon.
Yesterday I found a clutch of ball python eggs and I got a little too excited and made a mistake.
You could see here that she wasn't quite done laying her eggs and she had one more left inside.
Now in my defense, I did find the eggs 2 hours prior to collecting them. So I thought for sure after sitting on the eggs for 2 hours, she had them all out. But strange things happen sometimes. And she is a first-time mom, so getting the eggs out may have been a little bit more difficult for her. After collecting and marking the eggs, I put them in the incubator and then I went to check on the mom to get her ready for her post-egg laying ritual.
And that's when I discovered the 7th egg.
I quickly candled and marked that egg so the embryo is facing up in case it rolls during incubation. I noticed that the egg was cool to the touch, so I wanted to get it into the incubator as fast as possible. A spike or drop in temperatures can cause the babies to be deformed or even worse. I found the egg pretty quickly, so I don't think it's going to cause any issues. But that's why an incubator that can hold a consistent temperature is so important.
All of these eggs look fertile and healthy, so I'm going to get them into the incubator and we'll check up on them again soon.
15 days ago, one of my ball pythons laid a clutch of eggs.
When I initially pulled the clutch, she still had one egg left inside of her, but I found it later and I put them all in the incubator.
So now we're on day 15 of incubation. Let's check up on these eggs. After putting the eggs inside of the egg box, I added a little extra substrate. And it looks like some of that substrate got stuck on the eggs, so I'm going to dust it off. So far, these eggs look pretty good. You could see that 2 of these eggs have a little bit of an egg window.
An egg window is a portion of the eggshell that didn't fully calcify, and if large enough, you could actually see inside of the egg.
I've found that with large egg windows, the snakes usually hatch out a little on the small side. But this one is small, so I don't think it'll have much impact at all. These eggs didn't stick together, so they were a little bit unstable on the egg crate that I was keeping them on. I don't want them rolling around, so I decided to transfer them onto an egg tray. This will help prevent the eggs from rolling around when I move the egg box. And then I'll place the egg tray right in the substrate. So they'll maintain the same level of humidity, but the eggs will be cradled a little better.
The eggs are looking pretty good, but a lot could happen over the next 45 days.
I'm not sure, but I think this egg may go bad. 17 days ago, this ball python laid a clutch of eggs.
This is a clutch of eggs where the snake had one egg left inside of her when I pulled them, but I found that egg shortly after.
After I found the eggs and removed the mother, I marked them, and then I collected them and put them in my incubator. Today we're on day 17 of incubation, so I decided to candle the eggs to see how they're developing inside.
And I'm not really happy with how one of the eggs is looking.
You can see how there's something going on inside this egg, but it doesn't have the network of veins that we're looking for. In my experience, these eggs go through incubation as if they're going to hatch, but then in the last few days, they go bad. But of course, I'll continue to incubate until I'm absolutely certain that it's gone bad. The rest of the eggs all have strong veins and overall look healthy.
I'm going to mark that one questionable egg so we could track it and see if my prediction comes true.
I'm really hoping that I'm wrong, but that egg just doesn't look right. The rest of the eggs look good, but we're still about 40 days away from these eggs hatching, so a lot could happen.
I'm going to get these eggs back in the incubator, but we'll check up on them again soon.
These eggs are on day 24 of incubation and one of the eggs went bad.
And if you've been following this clutch's journey, you'll remember that we marked this egg because it didn't look right and we predicted that it was going to go bad.
I'll cut the egg open to take a look inside to see if we could figure out why it went bad. This egg did not smell good at all. In fact, it was the smell in the incubator that prompted me to check up on the egg. It was very watery inside of the egg and a lot of the yolk was solidified.
When we candled this egg, there wasn't a network of veins that's usually present in a fertile egg, so I thought this one was more more or less a slug.
So I was a little surprised to find a developing snake inside. The snake was no longer alive, and judging by the size of it, it didn't last more than a week.
When I went through the contents of the rest of the egg, I didn't find those strong veins on the inside of the eggshell that's necessary to nourish the developing snake.
From what I could tell, the snake itself looked like it didn't have any developmental issues, but the egg itself seemed to be lacking a key component to developing life.
So my guess would be that the egg didn't develop properly to create an environment to sustain life.
This is not what I wanted to see on day 57 of incubation.
This wasn't the nicest looking clutch, but the eggs appeared to be pretty healthy until today.
One of the eggs started turning some unusual colors. The egg felt a little mushy inside and the snake wasn't responding to my touch. At this point in time, the snakes are fully developed. Since the snake is fully developed and I'm detecting some problems, I decided to cut the egg open to see if I could find what the issue is.
When I cut this egg open, I'm hoping that there is something I could do, but to be honest, I don't have a good feeling about this one.
I pinch a portion of the egg and I cut that pinch off very slowly and carefully so I don't injure the snake. I noticed right away that the yolk was very dark and didn't look normal at all. And the little one wasn't responding to my touch even with the egg open.
When I removed some of the snake, I noticed that it had a cleft lip and palate and ultimately didn't survive.
It also stopped absorbing yolk, which probably happened after it passed away. Here you could see the yolk stalk, which is similar to an umbilical cord, and it's attached to the yolk sac, which the snake absorbs as it grows.
This was unfortunate, but very interesting to see.
Yesterday we discovered that one of the baby snakes in this clutch didn't make
I
it.
normally don't like to cut. I like to let the snakes hatch on their own, but since this clutch is giving me some issues, I'm going to cut the clutch open in an attempt to save the baby snakes.
This little one actually already pipped, but I'm going to make the opening bigger so I could check on the baby snake to make sure everything's alright. I have to be very careful and focused while cutting so I don't accidentally harm the snake. As you can see, unlike chicken eggs, snake eggs are soft.
So these sharp scissors cleanly cuts through the egg.
The little bit of red that you'll see is not an injury to the snake, it's just from the veins that are on the inside of the eggshell. Now since this little one already pipped on its own, I expected to be healthy. And when I finally opened up the egg, this little one's head was already out and curious as to what was going on, which is a really good sign, and from what I could tell, this snake looks fine. So what I'll do now is I'll put the snake back in the incubator and let it crawl out on its own.
This little one should crawl out in about a day or two, but I'm going to go ahead and open up another egg.
Although I typically don't like to do it, I decided to cut this clutch of ball python eggs open.
This clutch isn't doing great. We already lost one of the snakes while it was still inside of the egg, so I decided to cut this clutch open to check on the snake.
These eggs are on day 57 of incubation, and by day 55, the snakes are fully developed, so cutting the egg open likely won't harm them at all. I had a good feeling about this egg as soon as I cut it open. The yolk was light in color and there was a lot of it, which means the egg was well hydrated.
The little bit of red that you'll see is normal. It's not an injury to the snake. It's from the veins on the inside of the eggshell.
When I opened this egg up, right away the snake responded to my touch, which is a great sign. And after looking the snake over, I don't see any deformities or any other issues. So as of right now, I think this snake is going to do fine. Here you can see the veins on the inside of the eggshell that I mentioned earlier. I'll leave the snake inside of the egg and put it back inside of the incubator. Ball pythons will typically stay inside of their eggshell for about a day or two after hatching.
And I'm a patient person, so whenever the snake is ready, it'll crawl out.
I'm cutting open this clutch of ball python eggs because some of the eggs in the clutch are not looking very good.
The eggs are on day 57 of incubation, which means the snakes inside are fully developed, so cutting open the egg won't harm the snake.
This clutch has the potential to produce some pretty neat looking snakes. And one of the snakes that I'm hoping for is a black-eyed leucistic, also known as a super fire. The little bit of red that you see is not an injury to the snake, it's just from the veins that are on the inside of the eggshell. When I opened this egg up, right away I could see that we got a black-eyed leucistic.
These snakes are all white with black eyes, and some of them have some yellow dorsal markings.
This one looks like it has a yellow dorsal stripe and may have some other markings as well. But we'll get a better idea after it crawls out of the egg and has its first shed. More importantly, this little one looks like it's healthy and has no issues. So I'll put it back in the incubator with the rest of its clutch mates, and in about a day or two it should crawl out all on its own. This has been a rough clutch, so I'm happy to see that the snake that we were hoping for looks healthy.
But the next egg that we're going to open up is squishy and it's turning some funky colors, so my hopes aren't too high for it.
I'm cutting open this clutch of ball python eggs because some of the eggs aren't looking very good.
We already had 2 eggs in this clutch that didn't make it, and to be honest, this one isn't looking very good. But let's cut it open and find out.
I noticed that this egg is turning some funky colors and it has some wet spots on it, which is never a good sign. The egg is also a little mushy and the snake is not responding to my touch. But I still take my time and carefully open up the eggs, being careful not to injure the snake. Once I got the egg open, I touched the snake to see if it would move, and I got no response, so I'm going to take the snake out to see if we could figure out out why.
When breeding snakes or any animal, it's inevitable that eventually you're going to lose some.
And a good breeder will take the time to study that loss to figure out why and make changes for next time. I found this large discolored bulge on the snake's underbelly, and it looks like most of the snake's underside didn't develop properly. This is the snake's yolk stalk, and it should not look like this. It should be much smaller. It's difficult to say what caused the deformity, and what makes it more challenging is I don't know if it's the mother because she passed away and it was her first clutch.
We still have one more egg in this clutch, so let's cut it open and see what's inside.
This is the final egg in this clutch of ball pythons. Let's cut it open and see what's inside.
This clutch hasn't been doing well for me so far. We've already lost a few of the babies, so I'm really hoping that this one makes it.
I typically like to let the baby snakes hatch on their own, but since this clutch has been giving me issues, I decided to cut it open in an effort to save the baby snakes. I'm not feeling much movement from the snake inside of the egg, so I'm a little nervous this is not going to turn out well. I'm going to make the opening a little bit wider so I could check on this little one to see if there's any issues or deformities. And once we opened it up a bit more, I saw some movement.
So it looks like this baby snake made it. Now all we need to do is to check to see if there's any other issues.
When I pulled the egg open a little bit wider, it appeared that the baby was alert and healthy. I won't be able to tell if there are any other physical issues with the snake until it crawls out of the egg. I'll do the honors of giving this little one its first boop on the nose. Boop! In about a day or two, this little one will crawl out of the egg. Then we'll have a better idea of what morph it is and to see if it has any other issues.
It's been a rough clutch, but we ended up with 4 beautiful babies, and as soon as they crawl out of their eggs, I'll update you.
These ball python eggs are on day 59 of incubation.
And all of the babies successfully made it out of their eggs.
So now we could closely inspect the snakes to see if there's any other issues. What we see here is essentially the baby snake's belly button, and it looks like it's healing up perfectly. If you've been following this clutch's journey, you'll remember that we lost a few of the babies. In fact, they passed away before they even made it out of the egg. So I ended up cutting the eggs open in an attempt to save the baby. And from what I could tell right now, all of these babies look nice and healthy.
Including this really unique black-eyed leucistic, who has a beautiful head stamp, dorsal stripe, and some spots.
Now that the babies are out of their eggs, I'm going to clean them up and get them ready for their first shed. This will take about 5 to 7 days after they hatch. The first shed is always exciting because you get to see the snake's true colors for the first time. Right now the snake's colors are sort of dull and muted, but after they shed that layer of old skin, they are going to look absolutely vibrant.
I'll put these little ones on a damp paper towel and back in the incubator, and I'll update you as soon as they have their first shed because they are going to look amazing.
These baby snakes hatched a little over a week ago and they just had their first shed.
Not only do they look absolutely beautiful, but even more importantly, they look big and healthy.
Despite having a few different genes involved, most of the snakes look pretty similar, except for this little one who really stands out. It's definitely a superfire because it's all white with black eyes, but there may also be GHI, pastel, or even Enchi in the mix. Because the superfire washes out most of the pattern, it's a little bit difficult to tell right now, and I never hatched one quite like this, so I'll have to do a little bit of research.
Now that the snakes had their first shed, they should be hungry and ready to eat.
So what I'll do next is I'll separate the babies into their own enclosures and give them a few days to settle in. After a few days, I'll offer them a frozen thawed rat pup and cross my fingers and hope they take it. I prefer to feed my snakes frozen thawed rats, but sometimes brand new baby snakes eating for the first time won't take it. If this happens, there are a few tricks that I use to try to get them going.
After I've exhausted all of those tricks, I will offer them a live meal and then eventually try to switch them over to frozen thawed.